Yeah, I mean, we'll guys, don't worry about the music. We'll bring it back at the end and we can all have a dance party.
I'll
Thank
send
you.
you a link. It's just on YouTube. Hold on. It's called Electronic Background Music for Studying. Chill Out Instrumental Study Mix.
There you go.
Nice.
All right. All right, my name is Jill Stott, and I'm happy to be here today with you all to talk about how we can be more productive, how we can get more done in less time. I'm a trainer with NextUp Solutions. I've been here for about a year. Love it. I teach primarily the Kanban classes and SAFe classes and some of the non-certified Agile classes when people ask us for that. Danny, would you like to... I looked at your face and I thought you were Brian, and it freaked me out. Introduce yourself, please.
Yes, thank you, Jill. I am Danny Janad. I am the co-host for this webinar today with Jill Stott, and I am the Senior Training Coordinator at NextUp Solutions. You may see in my window here, I was Brian Evil. That is my costume for today. I am dressed as one of our attendees, one of your fellow webinar attendees. But yeah, we're happy to be joining you all here today in the webinar. So thanks for coming in.
All right. So let's get started. I was thinking about this. I always am thinking about how can I get more done in less time, right? I'm not one of those people who are just naturally highly structured and disciplined. So I have to put it, first my question was, why am I like this? I've learned this stuff 100 times, right? But I still fall into these patterns of really inefficient behavior. So I was like pondering it, and Danny and I were chatting about it yesterday. Like, why do we tend to do things that are illogical and actually end up taking more time away from our productive work? So a couple of things. The thought is, hey, the more stuff I have on my plate at a given time, the more things I'm going to get finished. There's just, that's a constant thought or perception that I tend to fall into. Again, I have to, everything that my boss asks me to do, I have to do, right? I just build up that queue and tackle it down. I don't have any say in it. Big batches are more efficient. Sometimes I think that too, like, I don't want to have to take the time to separate this out. I just want to start, plow through it, 3 weeks later, have that big project done. This isn't me. I love collaborating. Thinking of some people I know, like, oh, I've got so much to do. And then people say, well, I have some bandwidth, I can help. But no, I want to do it all myself because I'm so cool. That's kind of how Danny is, right?
I'm too cool, man. I'm too cool. I'm like Snoopy with sunglasses and a skateboard.
Otherwise, I have to tell you, I had a weird dream about Snoopy the other day. So weird.
That's bonus material at the end. Yeah.
That'll be on the after show.
That's right.
So again, the more time I spend working, the more I'm going to produce. Okay, so like, oh, I've got so much to do. Well, instead of working 8 hours, I'm going to spend all day working 15 hours, 20 hours. I'm going to get so much done, and it's going to be awesome. I keep falling into that trap since I've been working from home. And then the thought that, hey, everything has to be perfect, right? I've got to work on this so hard and so long because I want to make sure I save face and I don't fail and everybody thinks I'm awesome. So yeah, thoughts on that, Danny? Is it just me or does anyone else have these?
No, I think it's great. Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of things that we were talking about and to kind of, for some concrete examples there too. I mean, the first one, of course, is great. I'm a victim of this myself. The more stuff I do at the same time, the more I get done. I feel awesome. People call me a rock star. You know, when you're multitasking and when you pull it off, you do feel like a rock star. You get a bit of an adrenaline rush, maybe an ego kick where you're saying to yourself, I'm awesome, I'm amazing, I can do everything. But the biggest thing there is that it's not sustainable. You know, you can't, eventually you will burn out. Even if no matter how good you are at doing a bunch of things at once, eventually it'll catch up to you. And then, you know, Joe, we didn't talk about this last night, but one of the things that number 3, large batches are the most efficient. When I was a kid and my dad and I would be doing something around the house, or I'd be helping him something moving, and I would try to grab as many things as I could to get from one place to another for moving, you know, throwing stuff in a truck or something. And he would always call it the lazy man's load. And my kid brain was like, Dad, that doesn't make any sense. I'm not lazy. Look at how much I'm carrying. I'm the opposite of lazy. And he's like, no, you don't get it. You're trying to stop yourself from doing more work later, but you know, really you're making it harder for yourself now.
That's a
And
great example. I do every time I have like a whole bunch of grocery bags I'm taking from the car to my house. I try to take them all. Do you know how many times I've dropped the milk splatter? I've dropped cans, they go rolling down into the street. It's so dumb. It's so like a backwards thinking.
right.
Okay, so let's kind of dig into some of these different aspects of the way we work inefficiently, unknowingly. So let's suppose, let me hide this. Okay, here's a story problem. So let's suppose you have 3 tasks you need to do. Each one you estimate will take you 1 hour to do. So what is faster, switching back and forth between the tasks, trying to do all 3 semi-simultaneously, right? Or completing one all the way, then go the next one, then go the next one. What do you guys think? And you could put your guess in the chat if you want to, or just shout it out.
Gotta be completing one first.
I'm sorry, what was that? I couldn't hear.
It's got to be completing one first and focusing, getting it done, and then going to the next. Trying to switch back and forth is something you only do if you have to, because people keep bothering you.
That's a good. Thank you, Bob.
Awesome. Thanks, Bob. Yep, and then we got a few folks in the chat here. Shivani completing one and then next, so that we can concentrate on enough on one task. Chris does one at a time. Rashab says doing one by one. Vic one by one. All right, so there's a consensus here.
You're already way ahead. Yeah. So basically, and you've probably seen this before. This is one of those common agile things, trying to explain to people why this is more efficient. So let's suppose I did them in parallel, like we talked. A lot of times, if you are a Scrum Master, you're a coach, draw this out. I had so many groups go, oh, I knew that this was an issue, but I didn't have the words to articulate it to my boss. So good. If I do these all, it takes 3 hours total, right? And then if I do them one at a time, boom, it also takes 3 hours. But what's the significant difference when I'm doing multitasking here?
You don't get anything done till the end.
That's one of, absolutely. So in that 3 hour segment, I've done nothing to completion that I could actually submit or pass along or whatever I needed to do, or send it to my customer until the very last minute, where I'm gaining that value over time, those 3 hours. And also this, our good friend, the productivity killer is task switching. So studies, they've done a ton of studies about this. When I'm doing complex work and I'm switching back and forth, it takes your mind a significant amount of time to get back into that task you were doing. So understanding all these data points in your brain so you're as productive as you were before. And according to this David Meyer, he's a psychologist who's done a lot of studies on this. He says it can cost you up to 40% extra time if it's significant complexity. Even if it's less complex, it's a minimum of 20% that you're going to add on, so it will take longer. So let's go, wait. So essentially, we have here, if I had, let's see, 3 hours, and then let's tack on an extra 40% of time to account for that task switching, how long would this actually take? It's longer. It would take longer, right? A significant amount longer, right? So if we take 3, tell me if my math is wrong.
Like 48 minutes more?
Yes, like an hour more, thank you. Like a ton more time, and you don't see that. It's like that invisible stuff that's happening. So it's really important to, I have a slide for this.
But wait.
Stop. I've got more.
Yeah.
Now stop. Stop multitasking. I know I harp on this all of the time, and it's still in my mind. Sometimes I end up doing it. it's going to cost you in productivity. And it's a simple thing you can do, even though sometimes it takes a little bit of extra discipline. I have to force myself not to multitask. So we multitask in a lot of different ways, not just, hey, I've got 5 things I need to do. I'm going to do a little bit of each one, so it looks like I'm a rock star. But what are some other ways or things that we tend to do where we're trying to do 2 things simultaneously?
Drive and put on makeup.
Yes, I used to do that. I used to do that. And absolutely, or drive and talk on the phone. And people like, oh, I can do this. I'm great at multitasking until they run over a stop sign and kill somebody. So
Vic says here in the chat, context switching.
yeah, oh yeah, context switching, right? I love that. If you have your mindset, let's say you're in the kitchen and you're chopping something, you're really focused on not cutting your hand off, and then you have to switch to do some mathematics. It takes a long time to separate those and get back into productive mode. Oh yes, reading emails during meetings, classic. Oh, I'm bored, so I'm gonna like read my emails or shop on Amazon, and then you miss a bunch of stuff. I've done that before, and they're like, Jill, like, oh, could you repeat that, please? And that's not a very productive meeting for anybody. Also, my son likes to, when he's studying, well, when he sometimes studies, he has the TV on the whole time. And I can tell you, one assignment takes like 5 hours to do because he's watching TV and then he has to get back and figure out where he is. You can't do that. It doesn't work.
Bob has a great question. How do you get your supervisors and colleagues to buy into not doing this?
Show them that graph for realsies. If they have the time, just show them, here's the situation, here's what's going on. You're wasting your own time, plus potentially the team's time would be. Or
another way, I mean, you would have to maybe consult HR in figuring out a good way to word this, or you'd have to gently to bring this up. But one of the things about multitasking, especially in this distance learning environment, and folks they've got multiple displays, and so they're trying to work on a project over here while having a meeting over here. I would encourage you to think about how many times do you yourself have to ask somebody to repeat something because you're looking at something else, or how many times do you have to repeat yourself to somebody else who went, oh, I'm sorry, I missed that, and if that starts to become a thing, you say, again, gently, hey, I just wanted to track that we're missing time here, having to repeat what we're.
Oh, I like it. Just gently call it out, like, okay, we wasted 20 minutes of our time.
Yeah, depending on how close you are with your team or your supervisors or your colleagues, certainly. I mean, you want to do it in a respectful way, but honestly, I mean, you just wind up wasting time when you have to repeat yourself.
And there are tools, I tried them, where sometimes like I'm watching a webinar, then I'll have another window open. There are tools that you can put on your computer that prevent you from going to certain sites. If you lack, like I do, that lack of self-discipline, which sometimes I have to do because I get excited to see everything and I don't want to miss out on anything. All right, next, Ohio. Danny, what's Ohio?
Ohio. Well, it's the heartland of America, Jill. It is the state that has produced the most U.S. presidents. Fun fact.
Middle and round on both ends. So.
What's that? What was that, Bob?
High in the middle and round on both ends. So.
There you go. Yeah, that's it. But Ohio also is only handle it once. Only handle it once.
Exactly.
And so,
that's what it stands for. So I'm just gonna tell a quick little scenario. So whenever I do my holiday cards, I have like 50 people. Well, I used to, back when I had friends. I had 50 cards that I would have to sign, fold the paper, and put it in the envelope, seal it, address it, stamp it. So forever, I would do all of the signing first, and do it in big batches, and then I would fold them all in batch. And then I would put them in the envelope all at once, or one at a time, all in one batch. And then I would do the addresses and then the stamps. And I thought that was the most efficient, effective way to do that. Until I've been studying this kind of some of the lean techniques in order to be more efficient. And one of them was, hey, that actually takes more time for several reasons, but you're touching the time you have to pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down, put it up, actually adds on more time. So I actually did an experiment where I timed it doing that way. And then I did it where I took the paper, folded it, put it in the envelope, signed it, got it to done, and then I moved on to the next one. Kind of like the example we looked at in the previous slide, but in a different mindset. It didn't occur to me. All right, questions on only handling it once? Oh, sorry, it's just reading the chat. So I have a question from Shivani. Which one should we follow, one by one or multitasking, or follow according to scenario? So in most cases, you want to do one by one, small batches, get it complete, and move on to the next one. It will take you less time. But also, and I tend to do this, after I got all of them done, when I was doing it in big batches, and then I flipped them over and I'd written the address upside down on every single envelope. So that kind of stunk. So I had this big batch and I didn't realize until the very end, oh dear, I had a defect essentially. And now that whole stuff, I just ended up sending them out, but it was not high quality work. If I had finished one, I would realize immediately, oh, ching, I've been doing this wrong. I need to change these for the rest of the envelopes.
Yeah, and you know, and only handling it once, it does go back to that to lazy man's load, or talking about trying to multitask, is that, you know, the concept of only handling it once doesn't mean handle it once fast. It can mean handle it once, take your time, so that again, so you're not going back to retrace your steps, you know. Like in that case, if you're addressing the letters, if you take an hour to do the letters, but you know you've really made sure that the addresses are correct, then when you send them out, they're good to go. You're not stuck another hour correcting everything, you know.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Do it right the first time. Okay, moving on to focus time. So the world's full of distractions, self-imposed distractions, plus maybe our coworkers, our families, our dogs. The idea is intentionally schedule focus time. So you can just focus on one task, the highest priority task, and get it done, and then take an intentional break after that. Some people just like, I'm going to work on all this stuff for 8 hours, but so many interruptions prevent that from being productive. So I don't know if anyone's here. I have a picture of a tomato here. If you've heard of, and it's been around forever, the Pomodoro method. Has anyone heard of that?
I've heard of it,
technique?
but I don't remember it, but I've heard of it.
Okay, let me tell you. In fact, I downloaded a. So what it is, the idea is, hey, you work in small chunks. You set a literal timer. So the person who invented this literally had a tomato timer. You know, those ones you use in the kitchen. And you set it for 25 minutes. And then it's like heads down, focus work. Close your email, close your Slack, tell your kids to leave you alone, and then just churn away. And then after 25 minutes, you take a 5-minute break. Stand up, do some jumping jacks, get a drink of water, and then you go and do another Pomodoro. Pomodoro just means tomato. It's in Italian. Then you do another 25-minute session, and then you take a 5-minute break, and then you do another one. So there's 3. So there's 3 25-minute segments. And then after that, you take a longer break, right? Maybe 20, 30 minutes, take a walk, get outside if you can, go and do something very different. If your brain, that's the time when you get those creative ideas. And if you're stuck on a problem, sometimes the best thing to do is get away from the problem. And then your brain has this magical way of like, zing, finding it. But if we don't take those intentional breaks, that's very hard to do. And plus, you, like Danny said, you get burned out and your work tends to be lower quality. All right. And I found, like, I used to have one of those timers, but my son broke it. There is, I can put a link in a second. If you go to, It's called onlinestopwatch.com. They have all these different timers, and they have one that's a tomato timer, and it's already set up to do the 25 minutes, and then it gives you, it says break time, then 5 minutes, and it actually makes that ticking sound. For some reason, I need that ticking sound. It's like a reminder, oh, focus, focus, focus. Whereas a lot of the online timers don't have that ticking sound. All right,
We hear a
next.
ticking sound right now.
Oh, I know. My husband loves weird clocks. I'm underneath a cuckoo clock. Forgot to turn it off.
That's all right. It's, you know, it adds to the motif, to the mise en scène of
I
the
mean, it was
webinar.
intentional.
Jill.
It's like,
Yes,
keep us
that's
going,
right.
keep us moving.
That's right. Oh, this is a fun one. It's a fun one right here. Go ahead, Jill, hit it.
Yes. So we've talked about, hey, bigger stuff like Danny mentioned. What do you call the lazy man's load?
Lazy man's load, which I do have a, I have
What?
a great story about lazy man's load if we have time at the end. Yeah.
Oh, parents. So
Mhm.
the idea is, hey, we want to chunk our time, like with the Pomodoro method, where I'm like chunking it down smaller, getting stuff to done, going on, going on. Also, we want to take our big pieces of work potentially and break it down as well. Now we have a little picture of a Kit Kat here. Kit Kat bar.
Kit Kat bar, break me off a piece.
Of that. So I just put a poll out there, and
Mhm.
I'm curious, how do you guys eat your Kit Kat bars? Do you
Get
break it
in
into
there.
pieces or leave it whole?
Give me a break, break me off a piece of that Kit Kat
Oh, I should have
bar.
had that music playing.
That's it. Well, we could give me a break, give me a break, break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. I'm not a trained singer, Jill, so my apologies to everyone out there. But
Oh, I like
I,
that. You have a good voice for jingles.
thank
yeah,
you,
I,
thank you.
I couldn't tell, Danny.
Oh,
I can't remember
thanks.
the answer to this question. I haven't had one in so many years,
You haven't had a Kit Kat bar?
not in decades.
Oh, Bob, you got to go out, get yourself some Halloween candy, or ask your neighbor tomorrow if they can give you a Kit Kat bar.
I have some upstairs. I wish I could like virtually give you a Kit Kat bar.
See what we can do.
So let's see. So we've got 50% of the votes are in.
All right, let's give you one more second. One
Very
alligator.
Get
and
it in there. Get in there while you can. All right, so we got six voted. 100% break it into pieces.
Why?
Nobody leaves it whole.
My
do
dad
we-
used to eat them whole.
There we
Pissed me
go.
off, because then he wouldn't have to share.
That's interesting. But Jill and I were talking about this last night, and we were talking about this concept of breaking work up into pieces, and we thought about the Kit Kat bar in as an analogy, and we thought, yeah, naturally as a sweets eater, as a candy eater, if you got a Kit Kat bar, your natural inclination is to break that larger thing up into pieces to get the most reward out of it, to make it last longer, to get the most benefit out of this piece of candy. Sure, you could just take a big chunk out of it and just bite all the way through, but it's not going to be as satisfying or rewarding. And
Probably less
so,
efficient, honestly. I've
and
tried it that way, and it's just like, nah, it's so messy.
yeah, that's true. So yeah, if we look at breaking our work up into that same way when we start our day, right? If we just think of our day as a Kit Kat bar, or even just a project, right? Something you're working on in the morning as a Kit Kat bar, and okay, what little piece can I break off and nibble on and work on until it's gone and I can move on to the next one.
Exactly. Thank you. And also, we were thinking this is an analogy. When you do have a whole bunch of work and you're able to slice it into digestible chunks like this Kit Kat bar, now you have an opportunity to share some of the workload. You can collaborate as a team and get that thing done even faster now that you have multiple people working on it. Kind of hard.
Nobody wants to share a Snickers, You're not sharing a Snickers with anybody, but you can share the goodness of a Kit Kat or your Twix. But that's
All right.
Halloween themed.
Yes. I wish I could throw out candy. Okay, so just real quick, I think a lot of you probably are aware of this. If this is like Agile 101, when I have these big chunks of work that are going through my system, or it's just my own personal work that I'm doing, It takes a long time until you get to the end. And then again, kind of like my letters, oops, I did this wrong. Hugely expensive to do it that way. Plus really daunting when you have this big thing you have to do. It's a lot more, it's less, I don't know, you don't procrastinate as much knowing, hey, it's just this one little slice. It'll take me a couple hours to do versus this is going to take me 3 weeks. I'll just go watch TV. So again, if we shorten those little chunks down, I can say, oh, I'm going to eat that piece of the Kit Kat bar. And I realize, oh, I don't even like this Kit Kat bar. I'm not going to finish the rest. Or maybe this work isn't valuable. Or I can actually get feedback from my colleagues. Or I could send something potentially to a customer and get feedback from them as well. All right, our next thing here, prioritize your work. So this kind of goes along with the thing. I have to do everything I'm asked as first in, first out, right? It comes in, maybe it's from a client, from my boss, maybe it's just my job. I've got to do it all, and it's all priority one. I think that mentality is probably one of those things that like encourages us to start multitasking. These are all due at the same time. I better do a little bit of everything, and then they'll all be done together, and it'll be cool. But we all know that is not efficient. That will add on significant extra time that it will take to get all those completed. So it's thinking, hey, I got all these things I need to do. What can I eliminate? And it may not just be work. What am I doing during my work hours that really is not adding any value? It's taking up time in my work hours, which is costing money, right? Because you get paid for the whole day. But is it really adding value? So it's looking at I would like map out your values. I've done this before. Okay, this is typically what I do. You know, I wake up, I do this, I look at my emails, then I go back and look at my emails. You can see, oh, I'm seeing a lot of pieces of waste that my process, maybe I can condense those. Maybe there's some work I can push back and say, hey, why are we doing this form? What's the point of it? Is there a way we can either shrink it, mitigate it, automate it, or get rid of it? All right, that's my favorite thing. Like always cut the fat, look for the fat. It always creeps in, not just in work, but I know in my own personal life. And I always have to take a step back and say, oh my goodness, why am I doing this? Let's get rid of it.
Get
Oops.
lean.
Lean,
Get lean.
good ain't waste.
There you go. That's a good one.
Love this picture. It's just like a perfect example. When we try to do too much at once, we're overloading our system. Maybe you work in a team and there's just constant barrage of work trying to keep up with that. What happens? This poor donkey.
Poor donkey, not going anywhere. I'll tell you that. That load of cargo is not getting anywhere.
Absolutely, yes. If I have too much stuff in my workflow, everything's going to jam up. I'm not going to get anything out the door because we're trying to get 10 billion things done at once. Also, how do you think that poor donkey feels? I think that's a donkey. Or is it a mule?
I
think
don't know.
mules are generally smaller, so I think it's a donkey. But yeah, probably not good. The donkey's probably very confused, probably a little frustrated.
Maybe a little embarrassed.
Maybe a little embarrassed. Yeah.
He wanted to do it all. He thought he could do it all,
Mhm.
but it was too much. Just like sometimes, you know, we want to do it all. We want to be that rock star who's like, oh, Jill's rock. She got a billion things done in a day. But it's not sustainable, right? Sooner or later, the donkey's going to quit. The donkey's going to quit the farm or whatever and leave or get burned out where you're going to have periods of major unproductivity. You just will. That's human beings. You cannot be focused for extended periods of time over days and weeks and weeks. You'll be like, okay, now I got to sit back and watch cat videos in order to reset.
Yeah, I mean, and this goes back to the old fable of a little bit the hare and the rabbit, you know, or the hare and the tortoise. You know, the hare's boom, 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 speeding along and thinking they're making great time, takes a break. The tortoise is just making just one. So, you know, if you're incrementally breaking up your work into smaller pieces like Kit Kat, you get to the end of your day, slow and steady wins the race. You finished your day. You got everything for that. You got your whole Kit Kat for that day done. Then the next day, you start over same way. And then you wind up getting to the end of the week and you realize, oh, look at all these increments that add up to, you know, a full bag of Kit Kat bars. Whereas if you just try to start with the Kit Kat bars all in one day, you're going to be left over. You're not going to make it through them all. You just can't.
Well, thank you, Daddy. That's awesome, because sometimes I get to the end of the week, it's like, oh, I'm so behind. But wouldn't it be cool to say, oh, look at all the stuff I did this week? What a great feeling to go into the weekend and not have to worry about work.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here is, and maybe this is just me, maybe this is a woman thing, I don't know. That extreme perfectionism. I do this a lot when I'm trying to do even a webinar. Like, I overthink it, I over engineer it, I spend too much time on a graphic. I have to take a step back, like, does this actually really matter? Why am I investing so much time in something that's really not that big a deal? It's not going to kill anybody or cost the company $1 billion. So I think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that maybe one of the reasons we do this is because we're, I don't want to say insecure, we really don't want to have shame. People are so averse to shame and failure. Unfortunately, a lot of our workplaces, if you fail, then, like when I used to work in an old school shop, any failure, you were reamed out, yelled at. It was horrible. And I was so scared to fail that I would take way more time on anything that I was doing to not have that experience. Mm-hmm. So we really want to create work environments where, hey, good enough is good enough. Get it done, move on to the next one. If mm-hmm. I'm gold plating, adding extra stuff in there, that's again, waste. That's fat mm-hmm. that can be eliminated.
Yeah, and that ties into the, what we talk about in Scrum a lot, which is minimal viable product. If you're working on something and you just get it out, test it out, see if it's going to work. And then, if there's areas to improve, then there's areas to improve. But the key is that you're able to get it out, move on, and then you can revisit what might need to be. Now, here's a question, Jill, or for the group. I mean, if we're talking about that minimum viable product, okay, I've got something to work on. Let me get it out the door so that we can look at it, maybe see how it works. Maybe it needs improvement. How does that seems contradictory to only handling it once. So how do we reconcile that with MVP, or minimal viable product, with Ohio? How do we reconcile the two?
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't really thought of it that way. Because in a way you are handling again. That's why some developers complain about breaking them into smaller pieces, because there's extra time I have to spend to refactor, to make sure they still play together. And that does add time. So a lot of it is balance, right? The reason we do that is to get that faster feedback and make sure we're building the right thing, knowing it's not going to be perfect. There's going to be problems and there has to be rework, right? So that's it. We want to know where we need to rework, as opposed to, oh, we put a bunch of wrong things in there and now it just wasted our time. So that's a really good point. And sometimes people might chunk up things too small. And you think about that transaction costs, that's something to consider when you're chunking up your work. Like, that's why Kit Kats are certain. If they were any smaller, I don't think that would be of value, honestly.
Yeah, it wouldn't work, yeah.
Work. I can't wait how far we're stretching this analogy.
Oh, the Kit Kat plays. We're gonna.
I'm gonna have to go get a Kit Kat after this. I'm just saying.
That's right. You will have to.
All right. So here's a tool to think about. Hey, I've got all this stuff. This poor little, I guess it's a panda bear. He's got all this stuff on his mind. I've got all these things, and it's kind of hard to know what's going on because I can't see the work, right? Maybe I have some items in my email that I have to do. Maybe I have some things in a list over here, and everything's not together. And it's really, really stressful. It's hard to prioritize things when I don't have anything in a single location and it's not obvious. So I got to do a plug for this. It's really helpful to visualize the work you need to do. So I do this just for my home chores that I do on Saturday. I get a little sticky note and write here everything I need to do. I put it on the wall or the window. So it's very clear. Here's the stuff I need to do. Then I quickly prioritize it because I never get all the stuff I planned done, especially when it's house cleaning because I hate it. And then I start working those through until I'm satisfied with that work. And it just makes me focus. It makes me able to see, here's what I need, here's what I can get rid of and not do, and prioritize. And the idea is manage the flow, right? Meaning, hey, am I getting stuff through my workflow quickly? Is there some places where there's bottlenecks? Are there stalls that I might need to rework my process? So, dun, 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 dun. I should have had to do a sound effect there. Kanban, and I know I teach Kanban classes, and I love Kanban. I use it at different levels depending on what I'm doing. Like I have a board for home stuff, and I have several boards for the work I do. So let me just show you. And I'm sure a lot of you probably use something similar. My little Kanban board, I'll tell you a story. So this is in Trello, and it's not the best tool either, but it's free, and it's, you know, and it's free. How's that? It's not the best, but it's free. It's all a trade-off. So Jenny, this is what I was telling you the other day. So Danny and I have been asked to create a new training, and it's a huge endeavor, right? And so we've been working on it for a long, long time. And a couple of weeks ago, I realized I need to chunk this into, it's so daunting and huge. I've got a 200 slide deck PowerPoint. I do one slide, then I scroll down and do another one. It just wasn't getting anything done. So I decided, hey, I'm going to break it up into learning objectives like this. Put those in the to-do column, and then I would just literally take this one over so I could see everything I need to do here. It's all neat, prioritized. I would take it over here. I would go to the lesson plan that I was creating and the deck and things like that, and I would get that to done, even the little pictures and everything. And then I'd go boop, and everything just like opened up. Then that's how I was able to get it done in a week. That I've been just like churning on it forever. So just the simple technique of, hey, making sure I work on one thing at a time, get it to done, blop it over there. And seriously, it like changed my life. So I'm not going to do a whole Kanban spiel here, but that's one of the main things as far as one of their practices go, is visualize your work and only do one thing at a time. Does anyone here in this group use Kanban either at work or in your home lives?
Yes.
Trying to.
You're trying to?
Trying to. Brian, in what way are you, or sorry, Bob, you mentioned you're trying to, in sort of, what's your strategy right now, and how do you think it's working for you, if you don't mind sharing?
The part about having discrete things that need to get accomplished, that is working. Being able to actually follow it through to just get it done, that's been more challenging because, I mean, kind of reflected the question I asked earlier. I get questions all the time from my colleagues and supervisors asking me to jump off and do stuff. In fact, during my last review, my supervisor certainly thanked me for being willing to jump off and do stuff when other people ask me to do it, even though she knows I've already told her I'm not as productive when that happens. So I love the idea of being able to work on one thing and take it to done and move it to done, but practically speaking, it's been very difficult accomplishing that on a continuing basis. So
That can be frustrating. I'm curious. I hear that a lot. And here's a technique, and maybe it's not feasible at your work, but if you could talk to your colleagues, those who are like pulling you left and right, and say, hey, I need at least this chunk of time every day. Don't IM me, don't come over, don't ask me to do stuff. I can still help you out, but at least Bob has a couple hours of focus time. Would that be possible, do you think? To have those
for some of them. I can at least try. I mean, as I said, I've spoken with my supervisor about it, so she's aware that I feel this way about it. Mm-hmm. I've actually talked about Kanban with some of my colleagues, in fact. And in fact, I was just in a meeting a couple of days ago where I was asking about trying to get a new tool for using Kanban on my work machine as just part of my normal set of tools, an authorized tool for the office. Mm-hmm. And apparently there's one that may be coming. So once that's visible and people see it, maybe that will make things easier because they'll be more aware of it somehow. But
That would be cool. And rather than just walking over, hey, Bob, can you do this? They put it in your backlog.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even if it's just a little ticket. And now, okay, like I'll get that after I get this done. And then they can see that, hey, it's on his plate. He's going to take care of it, but he's working smarter and more efficiently. So it's a struggle. You know, people, it's because of people. There weren't any people, it'd be easy.
But no, I mean, that is great, visualizing it. And it goes back to what you had said earlier, Jill, too, about being like, oh yeah, prioritizing somebody else's ask over mine. It doesn't mean, you know, we do that because we're considerate of others, or we may feel the pressure of a superior or supervisor or something. But yeah, really, if it's on the board, it's on my plate, I will get there. I'm not devaluing your work. It's just that's where it flows. It falls in the flow, right?
There's some things like, as like Bob's like, well, this is great in theory, but at least if you could make some of that go away, make it more planned work. So there's certain things like when I'm training and my boss is like, oh my gosh, I need this. Like, I can't make him do that. So some things will always pop up, and that's okay. But just try to minimize that. Okay, our last little thing here, and this was Danny. Danny, you want to take this? Remember, I added an acronym to it.
Schedule productivity maintenance time, carve out time. So yeah, refresh my memory, Jill. We were talking about this yesterday.
We had a fun little Halloween get together yesterday with this company. So anyway, the PMT. Right? So this is like the PMT. Carve out time to focus on, I think of as refactoring, actually.
Yes, that's right. Okay. See, it's just the acronym. I didn't, you know,
sorry.
You put the mastery on top of my sort of like just, you know, seed of an idea, and you blossomed it into a big flower.
So,
yeah. But yes, yeah. So sorry, Jill. Thank you for the refresher. But yeah, and as Jill mentioned, you know, sort of a technical term, refactoring. But this is more like, you know, when you do have downtime, obviously a lot of what we've been talking about is when you don't seem to have enough time, and when things are piled up. But when you do have downtime, or when you do have time to breathe a little bit, kind of one of the ways in which you can benefit only handling things once is taking that time to sort of build your foundation for things that you might do all the time. You know, just cleaning up some of your practices, so that if there's a template that you use often, making sure it's up to date, you know, making sure all of your tools are up to date, so that when you have to revisit something, you're not having to refactor or retool something every time, especially when it's something that you're using frequently. If you do the work ahead of time, with that concept of Ohio, if you do the work ahead of time, then you have something that's in theory ready to go, and you're still really only handling it once, even though it might be something that you're providing later. And then, you know, if there is an update, it's easy to make, because you know that you've already got the latest thing available to you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Danny. So that's a really good point. You know, we're working so hard, and we'll forget sometimes some of the maintenance stuff we need to do on a personal level. It could be something as simple as, like Danny said, I've been meaning to update that template, but I just never got around to it. Carve out time, put something on your calendars, maybe an hour or two a week, if that makes sense. Clean up, you should see my workspace. It's just, I clean it up, and then it just, I get so busy. I've got papers and books everywhere. Carve out some time in your work, because this is part of work, right? Clean it up, clean up your folders, things that are taking forever to find things. Take training, take common training from Jill at NextUp Solutions. Look at different tools that you can use, whether it be common or something different, to make things more efficient. I think that's super, super important, and often gets neglected.
But that's, I mean, that's, and the image of the calendar is a great example too. I mean, it's not, look at that calendar, look at your calendar. I mean, it happens all the time. I keep a planner. I have my Outlook calendar on my computer at home. My wife has 3 calendars that on the wall in the kitchen that constantly, one is a birthday calendar. It's only supposed to be for birthdays, so I'm not supposed to write anything other than that on there. And then there's another calendar that does other stuff. But my point being, we write things on our calendars. I write in pen often, but if you write in pencil, you got to go through, look at the week ahead and go, okay, that changed. So if that changed, clean it off. Because guess what? When you get to that day, you might think, oh, shoot, I have this coming up. Or the night before you go to sleep and you're like, oh, I have this. And you're stressed, or you think you've got more to do the next day than you actually do. But if you just do a little bit of maintenance on that calendar as you go, and you realize, yeah, these things are off my plate. It's off my plate. It's off my plate. So yeah, it's one of those things that's easy to forget to do. But it's something that will easily, if you've done it, will help you get more done in less time.
Yeah, just put your calendar PMT. Or as
PMT.
Brian says, pro me time. I like that. Pro me.
time.
No,
Pro
me.
me time.
Me time.
PMT and then pro me time. I think that's trademarked Darth Brian. I think so.
That's right.
All right, so that concludes the content we have. What questions or suggestions or ideas do the rest of you have that we would love to hear them?
So I had a thought going through this. So I do Kanbans with my kids for their schoolwork in particular. And I have one that's really struggling despite the Kanban. And I thought about I had totally forgotten about the tomato stuff. So I'm going to try that. I appreciate that.
Have it like on the wall? Is it physical or is it virtual?
It's on the wall. It's on the wall with stickies. Like, here's all the stuff I have to do for school, my assignments. But then she'll still just not do it. It's hard. So
they're in their face. I'll try that with my son since I've tried everything else.
But I like the timer, so she can understand.
And I encourage you to
try
get a
that.
physical timer. There's something like when I see that tomato on my desk, it reminds me, because I don't agree. I'll go to open it. Yes, absolutely. Thank you. And then Vic asked, what is the Kanban course you would recommend? So we have a couple of them. We have, it's called the KMP1 class. It's certified by the Kanban University. It's a 2-day class. I think we have one coming up in November. And we're also providing, which is kind of exciting, we haven't done this a lot, they have a 1-day class that's certified through Kanban University called the TKP class. And I have one of those coming up as well, if a 1-day class, and you still get a lot of information, it just doesn't go in as depth as the 2-day class, but I recommend either one of those.
Yeah, the KMP one, and there is a track for a larger certification with that too. So KMP one being the 2-day sort of introduction that Joe mentioned, but then there's a KMP 2 as well, which builds on what you learn in that first KMP one. And those two classes together, though each is a certified class on its own, considered certified, at the end of taking those 2 classes, which would be 4 days total, since they're both 2-day classes, you receive from Kanban University a full KMP certification. And that's what they call the Kanban Management Professional.
And it never expires, and there's no test.
That's right. Yeah.
I took the KMP one from Jill. It was really good.
I agree. It was an excellent course.
So yeah, so you don't have to, you don't have to move forward into the full credential, but yeah, if you're just interested in dipping your toe in TKP, but really a more in-depth introduction is the KMP one.
Thank you. What other questions do we have, or comments, or things that work for you that will help me be more efficient?
Yeah. Any anecdotes actually here? If anybody here has found something that you're like, hey, this is my jam. This really helps me stay organized. We're open for that too.
While in general, the Kanban works well for lots of reasons, have people reported it being more challenging for them with the more remote work going on, because they're separated from the colleagues and some of the tools they used to use weren't necessarily always available for other people to see?
I've heard some of that, especially the people who had the physical board. It was in their face all the time. You'd walk by it, the boss would see it. The problem is, it's still, they had to move everything to the online tool like Lean Kit, Trello. Don't recommend that, but there's a ton of them. And then it's just getting in the habit of opening that up and having that on your what is that, your screen all the time. So
yeah, I mean,
and learning the tools, like literally, I've had several people like, I don't understand this tool. Like, some of them, like Swift Kanban, is a little bit not intuitive. So that there was some lag time that I've heard from different students who've had to do that.
Yeah, I mean, right. It depends on how complicated you want it to be. From logistically, the logistics team, when coordinating training for NextUp Solutions, we meet every day. We use spreadsheets, we use Google Docs frequently to track, items in our to-do list, and it can be updated instantaneously. So that's one of the ways in which that we have really worked well together during this remote time and tracking how things are getting done. And it's just really simple, and it doesn't cost anything,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Other questions, other insights?
Let's see, somebody had posted something in the chat here. Let's see. So Vic also says, what is WIP limits is hard for my team to work with. Any tips? They sometimes go over the WIP limits, especially as we work remotely.
Interesting. That's interesting that it's different now that they're remote or not. So a couple of things. One, this if you were just starting Kanban, don't start with WIP limits. And just for those who are not familiar with that, it's just like you say, hey, for this operation, we're only going to allow X number of tickets or items in this column. And it forces you to not multitask, right? It forces you to get this done, focus on getting work done, not getting work started.
And just to clarify too, WIP, for anybody if we haven't said it, or to reiterate, WIP is a work in progress. So that's what we're referring to when we say WIP, work in progress.
Thank you. Yes, and sometimes like I have a new team moving to Kanban, we don't even start with those at all because tends to be a lot of resistance. In fact, in the KMP2 class, we do a whole exercise how we deal with that. When there's just too much resistance about putting WIP limits on. Potentially just start with maybe one column. Let's try it here and just know we can change it. It's not put in stone. And people get paranoid that I'm not going to have enough work to do. They still under that illusion that if the more I have on my plate, the more I'm going to get done. It's really an education. Show them some of these little charts and graphs. Like, here's what's actually happening. I mean, I'm sure they're intelligent people who understand science. Once I saw that, like, I didn't get it either until I saw that. Oh, goodness gracious. That could be potentially something you could do to change that, right? And then I know some groups, they start with a larger WIP limit and then gradually look at the data, look at your lead time, say, like, how are we doing? You know, our lead time is 3 weeks. Let's do some experiments, call experiments. Let's do some experiments, maybe modifying these WIP limits, see if we can make that smaller and get everyone excited how awesome and productive they are without killing themselves. All right. And then Ming, oh, sorry, Ming just mentioned, I forgot to say, we are recording this and it will be available like today, right?
Yep, an email will go out later this afternoon with the recording for everyone who registered, recording of the whole session here.
Awesome. Other questions?
Let's see, we've got something down in the chat. You're welcome, Ming.
Familiar names and faces.
Will we be able to share this recording with a colleague if you want to as a way of perhaps enhancing their appreciation of some of these concepts?
Absolutely. Yes. Share the love. Share the love. Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And feel free to let them know, you know, obviously you're here, you know that this is a free webinar. So we continue to hold them about once a month. And so we've got some planning to do for going into the new year, but they of course are always welcome to join the free webinars as well. But yeah, please share.
Yeah, we've talked about just having like an open session, like send all your teams and like, okay, well, we're going to coach you here for free.
Yeah, I think that would be, it's
good.
nice to have a focal point, but I think that sometimes there's a lot of folks who come into the webinars with just more general questions. So yeah, this has been something Jill's noodled on for a while. We were talking about a little bit before this webinar where we should bring somebody famous in, right, Jill?
Yes, and then we talked to realize we don't know anyone famous. Oh, Brian, okay.
Yeah, we got Brian.
You know, Brian. But yeah, so I have certainly if anybody has questions, feel free to speak up. We're happy to hear them or pop them in the chat. I have a quick quick lazy man's load story
Oh,
to
right.
illustrate
Yes.
to illustrate why you should take your time and not try to do more than you should at a given moment. So it was one of my first jobs. I was 15 years old, and I got hired under, below the table to be a construction worker, to work on a construction site. And it was the middle of August in Central Virginia. It was super hot and humid. It was terrible. I hated every second of it. But we were taking the roof off of a one-story house so that we could raise it to 2 stories. So we had cut the roof all along the rafters, and we were ripping the roof off, and we were throwing it off the side of the house into a dumpster, into a dump truck. Now, there was a very small plank that we left for us to walk back and forth between the rafters, so that we could safely get the boards over into the truck. Now, I had collected a big stack of boards to be thrown into the dumpster, way more than I should have been carrying, so much so that my arms were spread out and I couldn't see in front of me really. And I thought, as long as I'm on the plank and I walk forward, it'll be fine. Well, Willie, my co-worker Willie, was on the plank, and I was like 15, I'm self-conscious. I'm not going to ask Willie to move just so that I can walk. And I thought, if I walked foot in front of foot on the 3-inch rafter, that I could get all the way to the other side of the house. Well, guess what? I couldn't see where I was going because I was carrying way too much. My foot catches on a nail. I trip. The boards go flying. Willie screams, "Sweet Jesus, boy." I fall between the rafters. My legs go through the drywall ceiling on the house below into the bathroom where where one of the members of the family was in the bathroom. And this was, I'm not kidding. And this house was actually my boss's house. We were doing the renovation on, the guy who owned the construction company. So, so yeah, I got paid for the day, and then I got asked not to come back. But but I bring up this point to say, yeah, I had done way too much. I had picked up way too many boards, and because I had picked up too many boards, and because I had an obstacle in my way, Willie was on the. I thought I could do the thing I shouldn't have done because I thought I had an easy way to get it done. But when that easy way was obstructed, I still tried to do it, and then,
That's a great story. I want to know more about the bathroom part. Just
Oh yeah. It was my
you're going to
boss's
the
wife.
bathroom, someone falls through your ceiling.
It was my boss's wife. She was in the restroom, and when I fell in between the rafters, because I had thrown the boards, I caught myself under the arms and so my feet were just dangling. I just was half in the house, half out of the house. Yeah.
Thank you. That kind of made my day. Thank you for sharing. All right.
We lost Brian. Thanks, Brian.
Let's
He
get
had to
him.
jump
So
back
anyway,
in.
yeah, it's top of the hour. Thank you so much for joining. We hope to see you again. We have one in the middle of November that we're sharing, and we'd love to see these awesome people back again.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. And Bob, thank you so much for all the questions and participation. We appreciate it, Bob.
I appreciate it. My pleasure. Talk to you soon.
Talk to
Yeah.
you soon.